There we are. Ready? Let's see. Alrighty, Roo. So, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this. Okay, so it's acrylic paint. I don't like doing fast art. Like some people, they feel okay doing art that's super duper fast and it doesn't give them anxiety whatsoever. But for me, that's very anxiety inducing to paint something like, I don't know, anything where people just paint fast. I feel like I can't be myself. And I like to take my time on my art projects. Like, I don't want to feel stressed out creating a piece of art. Like, I want it to be enjoyable and fun. And I feel like if you're going fast, it no longer is fun anymore. That's my view on art. If you have to go fast, it's not fun. I totally feel that way. Okay, so I've been watching a lot of Magnificent Century, you know, my Turkish shows. Love. I mean, it's kind of the equivalent of more, but just the way that the actors and how Turkish people are so dramatic about, like, love. I'm like, I don't know. It kind of just makes you think, oh, how romantic. Like, I mean, I doubt it's like that in real life. It's just a show, but it's just like when they say aşk, the whole idea of like love, just romantic. Am I romantic? A little bit, yeah. I believe in like real romance, not like the fake, not the fake variety, but I do believe like in actual. I do believe it exists. Like, I'm not. Like, I think our society's kind of jaded. But I don't like jaded people. Because they don't look for the good stuff in life. So I think it can be real. I do think so. And you know what? I noticed like some of it was some of the green, a white tinge in it. I'm like, I'm getting all makeup into different elements of the painting at once. Okay. It has a acrylic painting smell to it. For sure. Definitely does. Have that. I really think it's always better paint your background first and then go over it with the final one. I think this is a backward way to do it. You're be going over it a lot. Yeah, even when it comes to writing, take your time, buddies. I don't like the slapdash speeding thing. Like, it's not beautiful then, in my opinion. Take your time. Rome was not built in a day, guys, I think. This is why I'm always going to have a different opinion on art. Like, I think if things are too fast, you're not going to appreciate it. Just slow down, everybody. Slow down. Where are you going? Where are you going? Like, that's what I always want to ask people, like, when they're speeding on art, like, and they're trying to do everything so fast. I'm like, why? Why are you in such a rush? Why can't you slow down? You can redo paintings, too. You can go over it. But this is also why I do art for fun. I'm not saying I would never do it as a profession. I mean, it's not my profession, but I love to do art as a side thing. Like, and I had stopped for a long time, and that was a travesty in my... I feel like I should have kept doing it, because I always missed it. And I would make excuses as to why I couldn't do it. Like, oh, I'm just too busy. I'm too, like, this. I'm too that. But if you don't... Like, look, I don't believe you have to go to the gym. Like, some people are like, to be fit, you must go to the gym. How about this? Stop working out at the gym and walk. Like, that is actually good. Like, okay, I've had a few, like, incidences where walking was scary recently. But I just had to surmount it and tell myself, you know what? Sometimes you just have to keep walking. You have to keep doing something. We're not going to let the bullies of society intimidate us, you know? You have a right to be out walking. I don't care what anybody says. Just like with painting, you kind of have to keep painting. I'm not going to use the gym analogy because I feel like people think that they have to go to a gym, but then they hire someone to clean their house. I just think it's funny, like the things people do at the gym are kind of just like repetitive movements that people used to do in another century, like to garden or landscape their house, or to like survival skills. Like, I don't know. And I know people are like, you're knocking the gym. Like, no, I'm not knocking sports, okay? If you're in a sport, whatever. That I get. But like just the whole, oh my gosh, I need to go to the gym and lift weights. I don't know. I'm sorry. If you love the gym, that's good for you. But I just like to walk. And I'm really active. Yeah. It's also linguistically very beautiful. Okay? That's another thing I think about, like painting words. Like, I've always painted other words, but I've never painted. I do actually sell some art on Zazzle. Like, I sold a few things before. Like, on this channel, if you look, like, there's a link to my art. So I have sold like reprints of my art for anybody that's interested. It's definitely on Zazzle. So I wanted to start painting this word because the closest thing I can think of is kind of like the concept of amour, but a Magnificent Century, when two people, they're based on historical characters, although, okay, Magnificent Century, like some of the storylines are just so absurd and way out there. I think, like, for the original one, the first season was really good. And yes, that was kind of fictionalized too, but I think the later on, the farther they go in, it just gets a little bit more absurd. And it just seems like they don't... I mean, it doesn't follow the exact historical life of Harem Sultan. If you want to know... Okay, but the thing about Harem Sultan that's really kind of interesting, like, the love that Suleiman had for her, this whole more, You know, it's just kind of like that concept, but I kind of like the word better. I don't know. It just really sticks in my mind, I guess. I really like it. Can't see. I want to be able to. Oh, it's in my main. Maybe I'll put a link. Okay, I'll put a link to it in the description of this video after it renders. It's on my profile page, but I think some things are just too hard to find on there. I know people have told me before they don't see it. So this is what I'll do. I'll start like adding a link. Like if I talk about my art or something, like I'll try and have a link in my description. No, I have to go over that part again. With the miniature cat, I think he's pretty much done at this point. I might put some Mod Podge on him to kind of seal it. I feel like I want to do that maybe in the morning. And then I'm still just dread it because they keep changing all the rules. They're like, we have no maintenance on Sunday now. So like they're not there on Sunday anymore. So that's kind of annoying. Like, so they're not there on Sunday and you can put in an order, but like I guess they've gone back. I guess the office was open, but they've gone back to some of their pre-COVID. Like, I know COVID's still going, but they had their office open again, but now it seems like it's more partially closed to the public again. And I'd already been doing everything through active buildings. It's just previously, I knew the maintenance person that would come and do all the stuff for me, and I don't know the new one, so, like, I kind of feel hesitant to put in another request. Like, I've been trying to make do. Like, I don't know. Why is everything deciding to break during, like, COVID times? Like, everything in this apartment decided, like, right at the beginning of COVID. It's funny. Because I stopped watching the Magnificent Century series, actually, for a while. I was watching it a lot, like, at the very beginning of COVID. Because I remember one day, I was just, like, kind of binge watching it on my day off. And I felt the carpet near the computer where I sit, like where I do a lot of live streams actually, with Aya and stuff. You've probably seen my setup. So I was just sitting there watching the show, and I was like, la da 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 da, like, why is the carpet wet? Like, I kept thinking, did the cat have an accident? And I put my foot on the spot of the carpet, and it just felt wetter and wetter. And then one day I realized the carpet was even more wet. So then I was like, oh no. So I called maintenance. Everything was like, they were being very cautious about everything. And they're like, oh yes, your the pipe to your dishwasher is leaking, and I have a bad feeling, a really bad feeling in my little mind, because the washer has been acting so fritzy. And I'm not a maintenance person. I don't know. I was gonna call my dad, but I haven't talked to him in the last couple days. I was thinking about asking him. I might call him tomorrow and ask, but yeah, so like all my clothing was just sopping wet when I did a load of laundry, and I kept thinking, okay, let me spin it again, and it was like spinning all the laundry into like this big pile, like this big knot. And so then I tried to just dry things. Like, I like to hang things to dry, but everything's so sopping wet that I actually did have to put things in the dryer. Like, you can kind of hear my dryer going, and it's taking longer than usual, so I'm going to have to put in another maintenance request. And I know some people don't care about stuff like that, but I kind of hate having to ask for maintenance requests to begin with. And just now that they've changed their rules again, and you have to do everything through the website, and I don't really know the new person who's doing it. Like, I used to know another maintenance person, but I think he was more the grounds person. Like, he's really nice. Like, I saw him the other day, and I guess his because actually, like, the reason I've lived where I live for so long is because it's a really great community, and I kind of just always knew the people who worked there. I mean, not necessarily the people that worked in the office, but the maintenance people. They always did a really good job, like, of, you know, getting things fixed, and I really liked that. That was one thing I really liked about. And I like that we have washers and dryers, so I kind of, you know, if you're going to rent, like, this has been a pretty good setup. So I have no complaints about that, even though I think my unit has a lot of issues with plumbing. So I hope it's not another leak or something, or I don't know, maybe it's just a faulty. We'll see. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm just like dreading having to call and ask, or just, yeah, I think I'll call though, because sometimes I think it's better just to call them and tell them. I know everybody wants to text things nowadays, but, you know, a lot is lost in translation when you text something to people. They just don't get it. And that was one reason, not that I did DoorDash a lot, but I kind of stopped doing it completely because things would get messed up. And if you wanted to order something, it was just almost easier, and you knew you'd get better service, so you just ordered from the local pizza place down the street, because, I don't know, they can't really mess up pizza. But DoorDash, that would also get messed up, so I just don't. I know everybody loves doing things on the app nowadays, like the app this, the app that. Yeah, apps can be good, but I still think just picking up the phone and talking to somebody is still best. Or even just going in person and talking to somebody, like, where you can just talk to somebody and you're not talking to an app. Or just, like, leaving, like, that's just my opinion on that. I prefer the communication aspect of it. Okay, but this is the great thing about acrylic paint. You can kind of just go over, like, if something's dried. You know, I do love, like, oil paints, how it stays wet for a long time in some ways, like if you're doing a landscape. But if you're doing word art, it dries really quickly. But one of the wonderful things about it, too, is that, you know, you can kind of just go over and it's covered. I kind of like that aspect of acrylic paint, especially, like, if you're doing word art. I love doing word art too sometimes, occasionally, because this is like one thing that I can do quickly. Or like shape art, like art that's a shape. I feel like those are things I can do a little bit more quickly, you know, just much more seamless. And there's other kinds of forms of love, actually, in Magnificent Century. Like, it's not just romantic, like Ash. Like, there are some scenes that I just think are really beautiful. And, like, there's actually some of the scenes I like the best are just, like, things that are more calm. Like, the calmer scenes, like, oh, when Harem Sultan is giving money towards building a mosque and a hospital for the people. Like, that's a wonderful scene. Or, you have the scene where her son Shangar, he has a humpback. He has a physical deformity, and just his father loves them no matter what. And I've heard he did love his children. Like, you know, Suleiman the Magnificent was considered magnificent, the lawgiver, for many reasons. I know, like, some people are like, oh my gosh, like, how dare, you know, just dispense with your little xenophobia, because, you know, funny thing is recently, I was like, oh, you mean, like, a lot of people in Western Turkey have, like, Greek, Balkan, Slavic background due to the Sultan's wife's concubines being Greek and Balkan, Russian, and whatnot. And this whole Greeks versus Turks hating each other thing, like, based on some modern geographical concepts. Look, I'm not saying that everything that the Turks did or as Ottomans was like ideal or the best, but do you think European powers were not brutal? Really? Are you so deluded that you think the Europeans didn't do the same things? And actually, in some ways, well, it's not popular to say it, I guess, like among some circles, but like some of the Christians actually were happy when the Ottomans came because they taxed them less. And yeah, so I thought that was interesting. So I know people kind of, I don't know, I don't really care. I just find it very interesting studying about this era in history, and I'm not saying everything was like by our standards like genteel or like perfect. Like, yes, there were a lot of beheadings, but the Europeans were doing it too, so don't even tell me. And Europe and Turkey, Ottoman Empire, very intertwined, very coalescing groups of people. So I just feel like all this hate that people have, I just like, don't make me a product of your hate. If I say that I can admire something like that an Ottoman Sultan did, like some of his ideas on justice, or that he was very poetic, or that he loved his wife Harem Sultan, like, I don't need hate from that. Just because, okay, here's another thing too. Another thing where people are getting all riled up, like, oh my god, and they're like really hating on each other there. Like, Turkey, the Ottoman Empire really suppressed the Greeks, and they suppressed them and they suppressed them. But here's the thing about Greece. Even when Greece was a very powerful entity under the Byzantine Empire, it was an empire, but who did people give their allegiance to back then more than anything? To their religion first, and to their city-state. Like, even when Constantinople, which became Istanbul, fell, like, I just find this so interesting. This is the thing that is so fascinating. During that time period, people were more loyal to their city than to this idea of a nation state. Like, so I don't know, just, it's like, okay, look, there are things I admire about the Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire was very brutal, like, when it came to religion. You know, the thing about the Ottomans is, do you know there was this thing called the Spanish Inquisition? When the Moors were thrown out of Spain, essentially the Catholics decided that they were going to start persecuting the Jews and throw them out. So a lot of Jewish merchants actually moved to the Ottoman territories, and they actually found more religious tolerance there. Look, I'm not saying later on, I know there were things that happened under the Ottoman Empire, like especially the Armenian genocide. I'm not saying there were things that were bad, but Europeans were also doing the same things. Their nation states were doing the same things. So, like, I don't have time, like, just because I find one aspect of the leader interesting, that doesn't mean that I'm saying everything he did was noble and great. Like, just calm down. But Suleiman the Magnificent in general wasn't a bad leader. Like, he was a pretty good leader for his time. He was very forward-thinking for his time. And also, if you just look at the time period, it wasn't the best time. I mean, just, if you study the history, I don't think you'd be so up in arms with somebody saying that they could admire something about a leader that lived and ruled for 44 years, which was a long time, the equivalent to, like, Queen Elizabeth I. There was something about some of the leaders in that period. And the thing that was really interesting, and the thing that makes me think actually he was a very forward-thinking person, was the fact that he broke against tradition. Because at that time, the sultans were not supposed to get married. They were supposed to, like, have a concubine, but they couldn't marry her, okay? And they would have one son with a concubine and then move on. And he actually loved Harem so much that he married her. after 15 years. And it's this whole concept of Ashk. He married her and he made her his wife, and like she changed a lot of things, and actually she opened the way for they have this era in Ottoman history when women ruled the world, by the way. It's interesting, intriguing. It kind of debunks the myth that women would, I would always hear women say, well, if women were in charge there would just be peace. Well, you know, there was a time when women were in charge. Queen Elizabeth of England, and the Sultanate of Women, because actually after Suleiman passed away, you had an era of like his son Salem, he was a drunk, okay? And some of the others after, they didn't live very long. They just were not, they were young. They weren't quite as acute of an intelligence to some degree as Suleiman was. I mean, he was a very magnificent leader. So guess what? Who filled the vacuum? Oh, it was the women. Like, and later on you have like Nemenu and then Kazim. And it's just interesting that people, and Safia. Like, it's just interesting that, you know, people don't realize that it was actually an era when women, like, that's another reason I just find the Ottoman Empire of this era so interesting, because women, like, Harem Sultan opened the door for women to have a lot of power. Like, a woman may not have been the queen that ruled the country, but I'll tell you something, the women had a lot of control. They almost ruled as regents. Some of the young sultans would like whisper to their mother through like the screen because they didn't know what to do. They had no guidance on how to run a country. It's a very interesting era in history, and it just goes to show that yes, there was a time when women did rule. They may have not been the direct ruler. They couldn't be, because, you know, both in Europe and in Asia, it was men that would rule, but behind the scenes, you did, I mean, later on with Queen Elizabeth, that changed, but King Henry VIII, he didn't want her to be queen. Why did he want a male heir so bad? Why? Because unlike, you know, they're compatriots. This is why I like to compare King Henry VIII to Suleiman the Magnificent, because they were ruling both in the 1520s, 1530s, you know, same era. But unlike King Henry VIII, who had a lot of fertility issues, he did have some daughters, but he had a lot of children that were stillborn. He didn't have a large number of sons. Suleiman the Magnificent had several sons that did survive. And Harem Sultan, I mean, she was basically very fertile. She gave birth to 5 children that survived. Jenkar did have, but just the thing that I thought was really interesting about the whole story was just the whole idea of like, the concept of love and what somebody would do for love. And like Suleiman just loved the arts, and just he loved poetry, he loved a lot of things. And this whole idea of ashk, love, it's just very beautiful. It's not just romantic love. I think it's also love for your children, love for the arts, love for like just being fair and being like loyalty. That's another thing too. Like, I'm not a Muslim personally, but I do admire like when they start talking about like the whole concept of loyalty. I know some people are like, oh my god, like we can't talk about Islam. Oh my god. But you know, it's an Abrahamic religion just like Christianity and Judaism, and I think like there are some concepts in Islam that I just think are very beautiful, like the concept of loyalty to your fellow man, and things that they express, like the whole idea of ashk for, it's a very deep concept, I think, really. I just think it's very beautiful, and I don't think you have to like belong to a certain religion to appreciate these ideas. I just think we should look for the good things, like the things that are true in all cultures. And I'll be honest with you, I'm part Middle Eastern. I mean, I'm not Muslim, but I am part Syrian, and I do like stories that depict Middle Eastern history and culture, which I think has been kind of just characterized in a very negative light. And I feel like maybe sometimes you need to go to the source to find out that's not exactly the case. Like, it's not exactly the way. I would actually recommend watching this show, and I think a lot of Americans actually on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube, and from England and other countries that are not familiar, like they actually end up really liking the concept. And like I just feel like, for me, I always knew the truth about that, but I feel like if you have like stereotypical ideas about what you think Middle Eastern culture is, maybe you should watch some like shows from those countries, and maybe you'll learn a little bit more of what it really is. I mean, it's going to be drama, just like an American drama, but it gives you a perspective that you don't see on the news. This is another reason I don't think binge watching the news is necessarily good for your mind. Like, I believe, yeah, you should read the news. I should put some paper underneath here. It's getting rushy. I'll clean it later. I think binge watching the news just causes fear, anxiety in people. And I kind of, like, look, I will still read news articles, but I don't watch news programs. I just don't, because I don't think that they have much value for me as a person in my life. I want to just read or watch interesting things. Like, if it's entertainment, I know some things are not real, okay? I can read the real history behind it if I want the truth, okay? On a concept. Like, that I can do, you know? But I just think if you kind of, like, select down your news consumption, maybe you'll kind of have a better idea, concept about the world. Is all. But I keep painting now. I'm like, my mind picks the wrong times to start feeling hungry. This is not time to eat. It's time to paint! I think I'm gonna do a salad live stream after this, because I want to make some salad. Oh no, I don't want green in there. Ah. I have to pull it up like this. Oh no, it's not go to asleep. Okay, I need to make more paint. Okay, in the future, always paint your layer of color first at the bottom or across the whole thing. And if I ever buy acrylic paint again, I'm kind of using up what I have right now. I think I will buy, of course I'll buy some acrylic paint in the future, but I will never buy these like little kits of acrylic paint anymore, like the apple barrel. It's $1 or something or other for like a little bottle. But I think in the future I would buy like bigger things of it, just so it lasts longer. Really, that's my thing. Like, I want it to last a long time. Good. Hey, Bob. Blah 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 blah. There's no green again in there. Blah 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 blah. I need more blue. Surely I do. Okay, so because I still have all this to cover. It's like a race. I feel like that's the whole thing with acrylic paint, though. I end up using a lot of it, and yeah, you feel guilty because you're like, I'm wasting all this paint. But what are you gonna do? Like, you kind of have to use it. And you have to work fast. That's another thing with acrylic paint. Like, it's kind of it's a different kind of animal. And another thing too is I know these tubes of paint are older as well that I have. So I'm trying not to get paint on me. Okay. You have to move fast. Like, I don't like to go fast. I mean, I don't like to go fast, but when you're doing a background is what I'm talking about. Like, I like to do the word part slow. Did you freeze up again? It looks frozen. Let's see. I have to go look and see. Better not be frozen, mister.